A storyteller at heart, Jaclyn Maria Fowler comes from a long line of recounters and wanderers who all trace their lineage back to Ireland. She too travels to write and writes to travel, and following in the footsteps of her ancestors, tells the stories of Ireland and the Irish diaspora. She is the author of It Is Myself That I Remake and No One Radiates Love Alone. Fowler has also published many short stories, including The Other Day I Found a Penny in the Street in the 2020 Colorado Book Award winning anthology, Women of the Desert in Wanderlust Best of 20 anthology, and In the Summer Before Third Grade in 2022 Fish Anthology. She has recently released a new book entitled Jack, the Almost True Story of the Molly Maguires, in collaboration with Eurobox. And she's our special guest today. We have her connected with us to talk about this book. Hi, Jaclyn. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's first of all introduce the book. What does this interesting and captivating title hide?
Well, the book was a story that was introduced to me by my father when I was just 8 years old. And it's a true story. It happened in the area where I grew up, and it happened to Irish immigrant miners. It's a sad, sad tale of people trying to make their lives better, but who were in the end hanged for the opportunities that they were trying to give each other. And my father was one of the people who tried to find the truth behind the Molly Maguires. People were so afraid to speak up after the death of the miners that even today, 150, 175 years later, they still are quiet in the face of danger. And so the Molly Maguire story is a testament to my father, Jack, but also to Jack Kehoe, who's the main character of the story. Jack Kehoe was known as the king of the Molly Maguires.
Okay, so with this answer, you already told us the inspiration also to write the novel. But what is the message? I mean, why this sad story, as you said? What could it teach to the readers?
So while the story itself may have ended on a sad note, the inspiration that I drew from these courageous men of little means, Irish immigrants in the 19th century, they didn't have much political power or economic power, but they believed in humanity, in the rights of all mankind, all womankind to live equally and happily, joyously. And so they were the beginnings of the United Mine Workers here in the United States. And while ultimately their unionization efforts failed, it did catapult other movements to succeed. And so for me, I draw inspiration from the bravery these people showed. And although it's principally about the men involved in the final outcome, women, wives, daughters, women all around them were instrumental in helping them tell their tale and live their tale. So I think it's a beautiful story of, again, bravery in the face of just unequal justice and the belief in the rights of all human beings to live a happy, joyous, fruitful life.
And as a proper reading, can the book be addressed to all kind of readers, or is it majorly an adult book? What do you think?
Well, the language is a little salty, so I would say it's mostly an adult book, but I would say certainly it's a book that could be read by high school students who are interested in labor organization. And of course, it's anybody who's interested in justice, the movement for justice, or in labor unions and the genesis of labor unions in general, or just the human condition in these are the audience. This is the audience for this book. And what I love about the Molly Maguire story, and as a writer, I find this about so many stories, is that although I choose one slice of one story, it's a story that's universal. It's a story that could be applied to any group or any people or at any time. And so that's why the story intrigues me.
So one last question, which is much of a curiosity on the behind the scenes of a book. What was the major challenge while writing?
Well, the major challenge is captured in the title. So for years, the men of power in this area paid for newspapers and books to be written from their side of the story. And so, of course, anytime a book was written, it didn't take into the full account the other side of the story. And so, so we only ever had the almost true story. And it was a testament to my dad to go out and find the rest of the story. And so one of the amazing things that happened is I spent, 2 solid years going through court transcripts and records from the 19th century in the area where the story took place. And amazingly, some of these things were still paper. They had never been digitized, so they were stuffed into drawers. And I mean, at one point, for instance, I found the long lost letter of Jack Kehoe. Like for years, people had been trying to find it, and I found it at the bottom of an old drawer. And I had that moment of like I had my backpack, and I thought, oh my God, I found it. I don't want anyone to find it until I publish the book. And in the end, I took it down to the counter and gave it to the archivist, and he stamped it and put it in the files and thought nothing else of it. But the following weeks, they started to introduce me to the information, the actual physical objects that were part of the story, so which they had not taken out of the vaults for 100 years. And so for instance, they called me into the vault and they handed me a gun that had been prominent in the story. And one time they put the noose over my arm of Jack Kehoe. And but what happened was the almost true story of my father, who is also named Jack, became real. We had both sides. And that's what writing is all about, is finding out the answers.
Thank you, Jaclyn. Thank you. We'll leave the full reading to all those readers interested. And in the meantime, thank you very much again for your time. Best luck with your book.
Thank you so much.
Jack.
Ciao.
The Almost True Story of the Molly Maguires, written by Jaclyn Maria Fowler, is now available in bookstores and digital platforms, a publication by Eurobooks.